Hey, this is Mr. Schultz, and we're going to be taking a look at writing equation in slope-intercept form given 2 points. And this should be very similar to what we've done the last couple of days, but the key difference is that before, when we've been doing this with a graph, and we've been finding the slope, kind of doing this rise over run approach and finding out what that is. But now we are not going to have graphs, and we are going to be using our slope formula to find our slope intercept form. So if I look at what my slope formula is, and it should be up on the wall there, it should be y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. And these kind of 2's and 1's here, these are just basically placeholders to designate between the different points. So if I look at my two coordinates here, well, I've got one x point and I've got a second x point. So this 1 and this 2 is just telling me which of the two x points am I talking about. So I usually label these as 2 and then 1, and then this will just always say, now this is my x2 point because this is my second set of points, and this is my y2 point. And this will be my x1 point, and this will be my y1 point. So I am just going to use that information to find slope here. So I'm going to take my y2 point, which is -1, and I'm going to take away my y1 point, which is 3, and I'll divide that by my x points. My x points will be the first position points. I've got -4, which is my x2 point. I'm going to take away 0. This is all defined slope, and you can either just plug that whole thing into your calculator or take it kind of piece by piece. So -1 take away 3, this would be -4. -4 take away 0, this would be -4. So my slope here ends up being 1. And then from here, this is a pretty straightforward normal example like we've been doing the last couple of days. So just finding the y-intercept using our slope-intercept form. So y equals mx plus b, where b is my y-intercept. And so all I need to do is replace my y and my x with some of the points and replace the m, which I just found, as 1. So it doesn't matter which of these points you use. I'm going to use this point because it's going to highlight something, and also because anytime that I've got a 0 in my points, I like that. It just generally makes my math a little bit easier. So here my y point is 3, my slope will be 1, and I'm going to multiply that by my x point, which is 0, and I'm going to solve for b. So 1 times by 0 is just 0. So I just end up with that 3 is equal to b, which should make sense because they actually told us what the y-intercept is. Anytime that x is 0, that's where it is crossing the y-axis. So my formula is just going to be, I'm going to take that slope of 1, so 1x, plus my intercept of 3. You can also write this as just y is equal to x plus 3, because 1x and x is the same thing. So either of these two formulas here will work. So I want you to take slope formula here, and I want you to try this now on your own. This should be a little bit of a review from what we did in Unit 2 using slope formula to find slope. So I would like you to go through and do these three things here. Find the slope, find the y-intercept, and write the equation. So I will have us pause the video and give you a couple minutes to work on this, and then we'll come back in and take a look. So you can pause the video now. Alright, so coming back in here, we are going to take a look, and once again I'm just going to designate my points as 1 and 2. So this will be my y2 point, this will be my y1 point. So I'm just going to plug those in. So -4, I'm going to take away 2, and then I'm going to switch over here, and I'm going to do my x point. So I've got x2, which is -5, and I'm going to take away my x1, which is -2. And then I'm just going to solve this here. So -4 take away 2 should be -6. -5 minus a -2. Well, minus a negative is the same thing as adding a positive. So -5 plus 2, this will end up being a -3. And this will reduce down to 2. Once again, you can plug this whole thing into your calculator and it'll solve it, or you can do it in pieces like what I'm doing here. So this is a slope of 2. So my m value is equal to 2. So now I'm just going to find the y-intercept. Well, neither of these kind of jump out as easier points, so I just usually go for the smaller numbers then, because that'll help make my life a little bit easier if they're smaller. So 2 for my y point, I'm still using that y is equal to mx plus b, where b is my y-intercept. So 2 is my y point, and that's going to be equal to my slope, which is also going to be equal to 2. So I'm getting that from here, my m value. And then I'm going to take my x value, which is negative 2, and then I'm just going to go ahead and solve for b. So negative 2 times my positive 2 would be negative 4. I've still got my positive b. That's got my 2. So I'm just going to add 4 to both sides, just like our solving equation steps here. Got b will be equal to 6. And now I can write my equation in y is equal to mx plus b form, where b is equal to positive 6. My m value is going to be equal to 2. And then remember, it's really important to keep y and x in your equation, because if I don't have those two variables, then I'm not going to create a line. If I plug in numbers there, I'm just going to create a single point or a single time in this line. If it's a line, it should have lots and lots of points. Lots and lots of points. It should actually have infinitely many points. So let's take a look at our two special cases here quick. I have provided a graph here just so we can see this visually. But your first tip off, if this is a special case, I've got the same value in the same position here. So if I think about this as a 2 and a 1, well, both of my y values are at negative 3. So if I think about my slope formula, y2 is going to be negative 3, y1 is going to be taking away a negative 3, and then I'm going to take my x2 minus x1. So subtracting a negative is the same thing as adding the positive. So negative 3 plus a positive. This is a 0 on top, and this is a 5 on the bottom. So this is equal to a slope of 0. Well, anytime that I have a slope of 0, I can just get the y-intercept from these points, because if I think about it, I've got the points of 1 and negative 3, which is right down there. And then I've also got my second point of 6 and negative 3, which is right there. So I have to create a straight line that goes right through there. And so my y-intercept has to be 3 because it's hitting it, or it has to be negative 3 because it's hitting it at the negative 3 point. So this will be a pretty straightforward equation right here. Y is equal to my 0 slope times by my x value. And then I'm just going to take my b value of negative 3. Well, 0 times by x, so 0 times by anything is just 0. So I could just shorthand this and write it as y is equal to negative 3. Let's take a look at the last special case. So we once again can tell this is a special case because both in my x position I have the value of 5. So if I take a look at this in slope formula, I should have 4 minus a negative 2. I'm going to take away 5 minus 5. So 4 minus a negative 2 would be 6. 5 take away 5 would be 0. So if I look at this, and I've showed this on the calculator in the past, if you divide by 0, your calculator will end up saying, I like the one that's on the computer that says error or not a number. On your calculators, I believe it says divide by 0 error. So this is telling us that this is our special case in slope, where my slope is going to be undefined, because I cannot define that. There's an error. So next, if I've got undefined slope, that's a straight up and down line. So that means that I'm not going to have a y-intercept, because if I go and I graph these, I go over to 5 and down to negative 2, ends up being right there. If I go to my next point, which is going to be 5 and then positive 4, so this is just going to be a straight up and down line that's never going to cross this axis. It's never once going to do that, so I do not have one. Which means, how can I write something in slope-intercept form when I don't have a slope, or I should say I've got an undefined slope and I've got no b value. So I have to write something that just looks totally different, and that totally different thing is just x is equal to whatever my coordinate is. In this case, it is 5. So my equation here is x is equal to 5. All right, let's take a look at our very last one here, and then I will get you on for some time with your homework. So let's take a look at a real world situation. So you met your mom for lunch at a restaurant in the IDS Tower in Minneapolis. To get some exercise after lunch, you decide to walk down the stairs instead of taking the elevator. You decide, or after 3 minutes, you're on the 23rd floor. After 7 minutes, you're on the 11th floor. Write two order pairs given the situation. So you're meeting your mom for lunch in the IDS Tower, so we're going to do some underlining. To get exercise after lunch, decide to walk down the stairs instead of taking the elevator. After 3 minutes, you're on the 23rd floor, and after 7 minutes, you're on the 11th floor. So that seems to be kind of our interesting thing here, and I've got minutes, so my x variable is going to end up being minutes. My y variable is going to end up being floors. So writing my ordered pairs here, I should have 3 and then 23, because after 3 minutes I'm at the 23rd floor. Also got 7 and the 11th floor. So I'm just going to find the slope now, and I can do all this same stuff that I've done because I've got my two ordered pairs. So I'm going to call this set of points my second and this my first. So I'm going to take 11, I'm going to take away 23, and then I'm going to take my second set of points, or my x points here. So I've got 7. I'm going to take away 3. So 11 minus 23, I should end up with negative 12. And then 7 minus 3, I should end up with a positive 4, which will simplify down to say that I'm going down 3 floors each minute. So this is what slope is saying here. This is telling me how far am I walking down in floors per minute, because I'm talking about, when I talk about my floors, those are my y positions, and I'm talking about my minutes down here. So negative 3 is in floors per minute. So I'm just decreasing or going down 3 floors per minute. So now I'm just going to take this slope, or this m, and I'm going to find the y-intercept. So I'm going to use that same y equals mx plus b, and I'm just going to replace everything except for my b, because I'm trying to find what is the y-intercept in context here. So neither of these numbers look super great. The 23 is kind of obnoxious. The 11 is kind of obnoxious. So in this case, it probably doesn't matter. So I'll just end up taking this one here. So on this one, I'm going to take the 23 for my y value. I'm going to take my slope, which I found over here, as negative 3. I'm going to take my x value, which is right up here. That's going to be the positive 3. And then I'm just going to solve for the b value. So negative 3 times by 3 would be negative 9. That's equal to 23 plus b. I'm going to take this and move this over here, so that's a little bit easier for me to write. And now I'm just going to add 9. I'm going to add 9, and I should be at 32 is equal to b. And so b is my y-intercept, and the y-intercept is always where x is equal to 0. So when x, or time, is minutes, my floor, or my y value, is 32. So this is just saying that I started at the 32nd floor. Started at the 32nd floor. So writing this equation, I need my y and I need my x. Both of those are very important things to make a line. I'm going to start at the 32nd floor here, because that is my b value, and then I'm going to take my negative 3 slope, and I'm going to plug that in, and this is my solution. All right, so take a look at the homework for this weekend. So it'll actually be due here on Monday. But your homework is Unit 4, Day 6. and that is going to be due on Monday. I should be back on Monday from there. So, so any questions that you had on today's lesson or on yesterday's lesson, we can tackle them when I get back on Monday. Have a great weekend, and I will see you then.